Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Medlock Post radio show. And yes, I'm your host, Richard G. Medlock. This is where we educate, entertain, enlighten, and empower. Today is August 5th, 2022, and today's episode is entitled Escaping Communist Totalitarianism. Yes, we have a guest with us today that is going to explain that experience to us, and it's a fascinating story. The views and opinions on the Medlock Post radio show are the views and opinions of the host. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Spreaker.com, its corporations, affiliates, or any other podcast streaming services. And I might add that the guest, those are her views and opinions. All right, so thank you for being here today. We're glad to be back on this beautiful summertime, hot time, August 5th. And for those that are on the climate change bandwagon, again, wake up. It's summertime. It's August. It's supposed to be hot. Thank you very much. As we get into this, before we get to our guest, I would like to just do a short synopsis of Fidel Castro. Yes, she and her family escaped Cuba. The Cuban Communist Revolution and politician Fidel Castro took part in the Cuban Revolution from 1953 to 1959. And following on from his early life, Castro decided to fight for the overthrow of Fulgencio Batista's military junta by founding a paramilitary organization called The Movement. But Castro's constitutional arguments were rejected by the Cuban courts. So Castro resolved to launch an armed revolution. And he was successful. Of course, he was backed by Russia to do that. And under his administration, if you want to call it an administration, let's call it under his dictatorship, Cuba became a one-party communist state. Industry and businesses were nationalized, and state socialist reforms were implemented throughout society, and millions of people have lost their lives because of that sense. Now, I remember vividly the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. Here in South Carolina, we were in that landing zone, the missile zone. Russia was placing nuclear weapons in Cuba. We almost went to World War III over this, folks. It got pretty scary. And the only American that died in that conflict was from my hometown. His name was Gary Anderson. He was a spy plane pilot, and he got shot down. And there's a memorial for him in one of our city parks. So a little history of Cuba and how it came about. Now, our guest today was born in Communist Cuba, and on August 29th, 1969, she, her father, and two siblings fled to the United States on President Lyndon Johnson's freedom flights. I remember those. That was a big deal. Castro's regime, however, withheld her mother's U.S. visa, and she was forced to stay in Cuba and with 3 other children. Their hope was for the family would reunite within a short period, but that short period turned into 23 very long and difficult years. Barbara's family was ravaged by the communist Castro totalitarian dictatorship. In 1993, Barbara started, she served as a Christian speaker and has spoken in churches from Montana to Miami. And Barbara married former state representative Warren Arthur. They have a blended family of 8 children and 7 grandchildren. They own an insurance business. She has homeschooled for 15 years and graduated her youngest child in May of 2021. Congratulations on doing that.
Thank you.
She also, having expressed no previous political ambitions, Barbara ran for Congress, South Carolina District 7 for the Republican Party. This is to run against Tim Rice, who voted to impeach Trump. And so I'm going to let her tell the rest of it because it's a fascinating story. So, Barbara, welcome to the Medlock Post.
Good morning, Richard. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be with you this morning.
Oh, it's our pleasure. I've heard your story, and I want to hear it again, and I want our listeners to hear this story. So I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share. Well, and like you said, in 1969, my family was granted our U.S. visa because of President Lyndon Johnson's freedom flight. However, Castro withheld my mother and 3 siblings for 23 years. And that separation was excruciating. It absolutely devastated my family. And, you know, growing up here in America as a young person, I miss my mom. I wanted us to be together. That's what I longed for and wanted more than anything else in the world. But growing up in America, I took my freedom for granted, just like most Americans do. I really did not understand where I had been, what I had been saved from, if you will. And it wasn't until I was an adult and even just running recently, pardon me, that I understood exactly. And as I'm seeing what is going on in America today, and I know we'll probably get a little bit more into this, I remember as a young child living in Cuba, my dad coming in the middle of the night with a black bag full of food that he had purchased in the black market. And my mom waking us up in the middle of the night so that we could eat because we hadn't eaten all day long. And walking out of the bedroom and seeing my dad holding that bag and giving it a shake, and canned foods tumbled onto the table. And as I don't know, between 3 and 4 year old, I was maybe 3.5, 4 years old, I cried out, "Look, food." And both my parents came at me at the same time. And it's just something you never forget because they were both like, "Hush, girl. The neighbors will hear you." And they were referring to CDRs, Committee for the Defense of the Revolution. And unfortunately, I see a lot of that tactics here in America today. And I hate to say it, but it's true. The FBI, when they're encouraging people to turn in their neighbors for whatever reason, whether it's COVID or too many people in one house when COVID first started, or whether it's the January 6th, or whatever the situation may be, the CDRs, Committee for the Defense of the Revolution, neighbors spying on neighbors. So I remember that vividly. I also remember as a young child, again, maybe between 3 and 4 years old, cuddled under my father's arm, and we were laying in bed, and he said, "Your mother has a surprise for you." And Mom walked in holding a can of Libby's nectar, fruit nectar. And as a young child, I learned how to read the word Libby's because I hadn't eaten. I hadn't eaten all day. And, you know, today as I walk through my grocery store, the aisles of the grocery store, and I see shelves empty, it really means something to me. It frightens me. When I see the attack on our food supply, it really, really, really concerns me. And when I see China, which is a communist dictatorship, murderous regime, like Castro, by the way, it frightens me. And that is one of the things that propelled me to run for Congress last year. And it's very, very concerning. Americans here in my district, in District 7, they're innocent to communism. They don't understand it. I ran like my children's lives depended upon it. And some people took notice while others are like, really, communism? It's just socialism. People don't understand that Castro went in as a socialist. He was a Marxist socialist. And it led us to pure communism, where when he took over, he was killing the people that were fighting with him. Thousands of men and women were killed because of his dictatorship. And so that concerns me.
Okay, Barbara, we need to go to a break. Hang on to that thought. Okay. These are dynamic thoughts that you're putting out for our listeners, and we're going to get into those when we come back right after this break. Thank you. All right, we are back from our commercial breaks. This is the Medlock Post radio show, and this is Richard G. Medlock, your host. With us today is Barbara Arthur, a refugee from Cuba. She's telling her story, and people listen to what she is saying. It is scary. And the one point that she really has made so far is there are so many Americans that do not, 2 points. They really do not understand the freedoms they have, and number 2, they don't understand communism and socialism and how it kills people. And this is what she's telling. She has seen this firsthand. So Barbara, it's all yours again.
Well, I appreciate that, Richard. You know, as I was saying, as I'm walking down the aisles of my grocery store, I can't help but think that this administration, where we are right now, is just conditioning us to tyranny. When there's no chicken and there's no bread, and then the frozen items in the Walmart freezers are empty, I'm thinking 40 years ago there was more food in these shelves and in these grocery stores than there is right now. And it's not even a gradual thing anymore. It's being done really fast. And what I have found about Americans is that we just, and most people, I suppose it would be the same way, but we are just getting conditioned and used to this. This is not America. This is not the land that I am familiar with and that you're familiar with, that we're used to living in. This is the land of plenty. This is the land where we had sufficient to give to other nations. And right now, it is just frightening to see what this administration is doing. And I know, because of the research that I have done before I got into running, and the only reason I ran, Richard, I want you to know this, that I've never had any political ambition. The only reason I ran is because I saw the communist tactics being used by the media on American citizens and this administration. The tactics that the media used, especially in right after the election, that's when I really became aware of what is happening. Many people will say that they have noticed socialism creeping in 60s, 70s. Well, I was oblivious to all that. I was just living my life like everybody else. But it really gripped me, and I saw it right after the 2020 elections. And I was in my garden and just meditating on what's going on and thinking, this is exactly what happens in China. They are farce elections. And I started doing research, and I found the many executive orders that Trump enacted to protect us from China, one being power grids. There are over 200 power grids in America with extra parts in the transformer, and Trump enacted an executive order against those power grids, banning them for national security reasons. On January 20th, on the very first day that President Biden got in there, he rescinded that. And I can't help but wonder why. And then Confucius schools here in America, they're being taught by CCP professors, and they're in universities. And the universities are taking money from the CCP because many of these universities need the money.
Barbara,
the thing is,
let me reiterate some of the things that you're saying here, because many of us did go to sleep. They put America to sleep in the 70s and 80s and the 60s, and we thought that just the hippies and the drug culture and the anti-establishment people, that was just a passing fad. But many of those people that were involved in that anti-establishment are leading the country right now. John Kerry, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and others that are sitting there in the White House and in state capitol were part of this. And our audience is aware of some of the things that I have educated them about, of the plans of communism to take over America without firing a shot. And and my big thing, you mentioned education, it's indoctrination. And
Yes, it is.
but we're seeing a big pushback against education and a lot of these things. So I wanted to get your thoughts about what you see as far as a pushback against what's happening.
Well, and I'm really glad, but I don't think it's enough. When parents are still taking their kids to these indoctrinating schools where their kids are being taught that you can be a boy at the age of kindergarten, and if you're a girl you can be a boy, and if you're a boy you can be a girl, that's perversion. That is, they're attacking our children's innocence and their morality. And that is a communist tactic. That is nothing new.
Barbara,
they want, first of all,
Barbara, I call that socialist communist promiscuity being taught in our schools. And
totally.
and I did a thing yesterday, an article by Anthony Cawthron out of the Intellectual Takeout yesterday, 10 questions to ask about gender. And I'll send you the article. You'll really enjoy it. And so you're bringing to point a lot of good points here. So again, I'm getting out of your way.
No, and all that's going on is they're targeting the family unit. That is they're trying to break down our family unit because that is what makes us strong. And they know that they have to do that, and they're targeting our children. And it's an outrage. When in history has a school been able to do this to children here in America and get away with it? Yet they're doing it, and parents are still dropping their kids off in those government run schools that are now trying to destroy our children. And we know that there's a high rate of suicide. By a month and a half ago, I met a mom at one of these Moms for Liberty's meetings here in Florence, South Carolina. And 2 weeks prior to that, she was there because her 12-year-old daughter committed suicide at school. That's insane. And that's just one. And no one's heard about it. I mean, you don't hear about it much. It's happening all over, and it's because of these schools. They're targeting our children's identity and who they are as a teen and a adolescent. You struggle with who you are already. Whether your hair's not the right color, your ears are too big, or your nose is too big, or whatever it might be, your eyes are the wrong color. You're struggling with who you are, and then you have people in authority telling you you're in the wrong body. It's insane, and these kids are being tormented, and it is because this administration and its perversion and the attack on who we are as American citizens. And I am convinced that it's because they are in bed with China. These are tactics that are being used right now in China. The things that they're teaching the kids over there in China, it's just perversion. And you can just do a little research on that, and you will not believe the things that you find. And it's being taught here now in America. There was a time where our children were protected, and our teachers protected our children. But the teachers that are being trained in these universities are activists. And most of them don't really understand what's going on. You really do not understand where this leads us. And it is a horrible place. And all you have to do is look at Cuba, look at China, look at other countries, North Korea. It's a war against humanity.
Yeah. All right, Barbara, we've got to go to a break. We'll be back in just a little bit and be back with Barbara Arthur. Thank you. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Medlock Post radio show, and I'm your host, Richard G. Medlock. We'll get back to Barbara in just a second here. The jobs report came out for July this morning, 528,000 new jobs. Now, when we say new, we should actually be saying rehires, because the employment, the number of people employed are now back to the pre-pandemic level. So, ladies and gentlemen, tell me where the growth is. Tell me where we are actually growing. We're putting people back to work, but these were people that lost their jobs. Employers, for this week, the new jobs report that came out was devastating. New jobs are not being posted like they had been in the past. And we've mentioned over and over and over that the policies of this administration, which Barbara has addressed a few of them, their policies are to destroy America. They are to destroy freedom, and they are to destroy free thinking. Now, they've done an excellent job since the 1970s of indoctrinating people in the schools and workplaces and in the financial markets to do what they tell them to do. And Barbara has made these excellent points. And she says, well, parents are still dropping off their kids to school. It's because the parents were indoctrinated. And so when we start looking at how these things are taking place, it is astronomically disturbing. So Barbara is a first-hand experience of communism. You heard her talking about no food for a whole day or more. How many people in America go a whole day without food other than homeless? And they are setting us up for tyranny, which they're doing right now. And if any of these bills that they have sitting in Congress get through, socialism will take over America in those bills. All right, let me get off my soap opera, Barbara, and turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Richard. You said that I had not eaten for a day or so. You know, my mom, as we had mentioned, we were separated for 23 years. As an adult, when she came over in 1992, I asked her, I said, why would you allow our family to be separated? With tears streaming down her eyes, she said, Barbara, you had not eaten in 3 days. So my mother allowed 3 kids to come, hoping that she and the other 3 would join us. But she allowed our family to be separated so that we could eat. For love. That's just, so it wasn't just a day and I believe what she said, because as a child, these are things that stand out to me, was walking 5 miles to my grandparents' farm so that we can drink milk. I remember the small little garden that we took care of in the back so that we could have a little bit, watermelon or whatever it might be. It's here, and it's very frightening. And, you know, at the beginning of the show, you said that Castro was backed by Russia. Well, the Biden administration is backed by China. And these communist tactics, they're in bed with China. And our media, likewise. If you do some research, you will find how much money China has paid our U.S. media. Millions, if not billions. And the Foreign Agent Registration Act, FARA, it's public information. You can look at FARA, Foreign Agent Registration Act, and see how much money our media is taking from China, and how many trips our journalists, the big media, all of them practically, even Fox, have been taking trips to China. I can't but wonder that these communist tactics that they're using against American citizens, where did they learn? Where did they learn this? You know, after January 6th, it was very evident. It was so clear when using the cancel culture, which is nothing new. That's an old communist tactic. People were losing their jobs, seizing bank accounts. Everyone that was an opponent was ridiculed, demonized. This is nothing new. That's an old communist tactic, and it's still being used in China. And then I saw it applied here in the United States to American citizens.
And Barbara, and Barbara, to add to that, we have this new ESG scoring system that the banks are using, environmental, social, and governance. That is a template right out of communist China. That's how they've scored their citizens for years. So now we're implementing that, or has been implemented in the United States. And if your score is not what they like, banks will not loan to you, whether you're a business or individual. They're going to cut you off. And without banks, being especially businesses, short-term loans and so forth, when I was in business, I was always taking out a 90-day loan. And if they're saying, well, no, you donate to a Republican, we're not going to loan to you. And so we're seeing this takeover. We're seeing globalism through China and even through Russia. And now we're probably going to see it coming from Iran and Pakistan try to take over the world. And what you're talking about is happening right before us today in America, and the media is in cahoots with them. They're covering it up. And I said on yesterday's show, if you think Hunter Biden's going to get prosecuted, you're dreaming. Nothing's going to happen there. So,
right. And the attorney generals that have sold us out, that are not doing their job in prosecuting criminals. It's an attack on America.
Yeah, they would rather prosecute Donald Trump, who is America first, against globalism and against all these things, and they'd rather falsely accuse him of a criminal act just to get him out of the way. That is communist Marxism 101, folks.
Yes, it is. They are attacking our law and order, creating chaos so that they can destroy our society and rebuild it the way they want to rebuild it. So that Build Back Better is nothing more than Build Back Communist. And, you know, as I campaigned and met people, found people, educated people, well-to-do people with businesses, looked at me and said, communism, Barbara, really? I'm like, yes, really. Some people that just don't want to believe that it can happen here in America, even though they're seeing it. They see what's going on and they're feeling it, yet they do not want to believe that it can happen here in America. And unfortunately, it's here already. It's here already. It's in this administration, the people that he is appointing to his cabinet, and they're communists. What is going on with all the Democrat Socialists of America that are being elected all throughout the United States? There's over 128 Democrat Socialists of America, which is nothing, that they're communists. You can go onto their webpage on their About, and they clearly say what they are for is the Green New Deal, against the police and open borders. Defund the police and open borders. It's an anti-America agenda. And they're being elected all over the United States, and these groups are growing.
And that goes back to the education system and the media. We do see there's an awakening in the United States, and people like Barbara and myself and others that are out there talking about this and under an educational platform to show you, here are the steps, this is how they're doing this is when they started, these are the rules they follow, and we're waking some people up. And I think one of the missteps that they have made is the food thing. and also the inflation thing. And to them, they don't think it's a mistake, but it's turning people against them. They are losing in massive numbers Hispanic voters. They are losing even Democrat voters, and they're losing probably 70% of the independent voters.
But what's it really going to matter?
And you know, that's a great question. That's a great question.
Really matter? Yeah.
And it's a great question, and we'll come back to that right after these breaks. Why is it going to matter? We'll be right back. And ladies and gentlemen, we're back with the Medlock Post radio show. I'm your host, Richard G. Medlock. And our guest today is Barbara Arthur, a escapee from Communist Cuba, a refugee, technically, and is giving us some insights how she is seeing America, how it's accepting and absorbing communist ways and communist traditions that are bringing down this country. So, Barbara, let's go back to that question you asked. What difference is it going to make? So let's get your take on that, and then I'll jump in.
Well, China unleashed a terrorist attack upon the world with that virus, with that Wuhan virus. And I believe it affected our 2020 election. And if they were capable of doing that in 2020, what are they not capable of doing even worse in 2024? So even though we lose a lot of these Democrats, you know, the Democrat Party loses some of them to the Republicans, is it really going to matter? Because they cheat. They don't follow our American way of traditionally voting. There's no morality. They have no morals. They don't follow the rule of law. They don't follow a legal election. So what's it going to matter? I mean, how do we combat this?
Well, Barbara, Barbara, one of the things, when I started this program in June, my second and third episodes were the rule of law versus ruler's law, and explaining how the Constitution works and what the Founding Fathers meant and what is happening today. And we're seeing that, especially under the Biden administration, if you want to call it his administration. He's just a figurehead. But the globalists, the shadow government, the challenge we have here, Barbara, is the administrative state. They're the ones making the decisions. They're the ones that are really calling the shots because the legislature gave away their right to them years ago. Now, Supreme Court ruled in June that they can't do that. That they have to have a specific order from the legislature to do something. And they ruled against the EPA, which basically against all administrative organizations in the government. But has it slowed down? No. It has not slowed down. And until we slow that down, what we see is going to happen. The globalist, I talked about this in the program Central Banks and Freedom, the globalists control the financial markets in the world. They control the banks, financial markets. And they can cause a recession or not cause a recession. And so it's going to be a long road to get control back. Even if we put a Republican in the White House, you still have Congress to deal with and the administrative state. So it is a challenge. I'm not giving up. we're there. Okay, Barbara.
Right. No, I don't believe we should ever give up. America's worth fighting for. To we whatever it is that we have to do as a people, as patriots who love our country, we need to push back and defend America and her ideals. Because, as I mentioned earlier, when I came to America as a 5-year-old, all I knew was that I wanted my mom. My family was separated. I became mom. I was robbed of my childhood. I started working when I was 13, and then I didn't think America robbed me of that, but yet that's what I was missing. Nonetheless, as I was growing up in this country, I was taking my freedoms for granted, like most Americans right now, and those freedoms are worth fighting for. Where else can we go? Where else what other nation provides what America provides, and the opportunity that America has for everyone that comes in, like myself, an immigrant from Cuba who came here 52 years ago and was able to run for Congress. Where else can you do that? Here in America, you can achieve whatever you want. If you want to become a doctor, a lawyer, start a business, whatever it is you want to do, you can do it if you work hard. And our government, our American government, it's a gracious government. It's a government that helps. Has always been a government that helps. Right now, I think it's we're not putting America first, which is what we need to do. We need to put our citizens first. We need to put our country first. But there was a time that we had plenty. We had an abundance. We didn't have the deficit that we have at this moment because this administration is creating it on purpose. But there was a time where we were able to help other people, and we did, because America is a good country. We have morals because of our Constitution. It goes back to the founding fathers. It goes back to our Constitution, and it goes back to our Christian way of living, and that's definitely under attack.
Barbara,
and that is very much.
Yeah, when we look at the things that are going on, and we mentioned the food shortages and stuff, I remind people that Europe isn't having any food shortages. Mexico isn't having any food shortages. Canada isn't having any food shortages. But America is. So it's hard for me to understand that a supply chain is only disrupting America and nobody else. And this is planned, this is conceived, and they're carrying it out. And if we don't start bowing and scraping to them, they're just going to keep making it worse. They're still forgetting the patriotic Americans who are willing to stand up and speak up for the Constitution and the rule of law and our freedoms, like the point that you're making.
And, we need people who understand it. Like here in South Carolina, I promise you, Richard, I don't know a lot of people that are elected that really do understand it. I don't know a lot of people who are running for elected office that really do understand it. Because as I was running, I saw other people campaigning, and I heard them in forums and whatnot, and they really do not understand what is really happening because they don't understand communism. They believe they're going to get in the office and it's politics as usual. Yes, we may have to fight the Democrats a little bit for whatever, and we'll compromise, make a deal. You don't make deals with communists. They're not there to make deals. People need to have that mindset. Elected leaders need to understand what we're really dealing with here. Communists only have one agenda, and that is to destroy our country. Destroy completely what?
When you say compromise, as a Christian and others will understand this, when you compromise with evil, evil wins. And this is what the fight is, good and evil here.
Absolutely. You don't make deals with the devil. You don't make deals with the devil. You will never win. So that was always my approach to this, is you do not make deals with the devil. We cannot have people going to Congress or elected office thinking that they're going to be able to make a deal with the current administration, because there's no deal making with them. They lie, they cheat, they kill, they do whatever they have to do. And when I say they kill, all those people they're luring in here from all over the world that are that isn't a that it. My goodness, people are dying. They're drowning. Women are being raped. Children are being slave sex market and raped. Little children are being raped. Senator Cruz was on a while back on Fox just a few weeks back, and he said a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old were found along the river that had been brutally raped. This is insanity. When did we ever accept this? As a nation, we have never accepted this. As a nation, we care about other people. We care about humans where we are right now, but communists do not. Communists care about power. And that is what's happening with this administration. It doesn't matter who they hurt, kill, or destroy along the way, as long as they achieve their goal, which is to overthrow our country. And luring all those people from all over the world through our borders and everything that they're experiencing along the way is criminal.
It is, Barbara, and again, sorry, we have to take a break, and we'll be right back after these breaks. And ladies and gentlemen, we're back. This is the Medlock Post radio show. Thank you for joining us. I am your host, Richard G. Medlock. I hope you are being educated and enjoying what Barbara Arthur is telling you. This should be a wake-up call to every American citizen that we are being destroyed by hateful people. Look at every communist regime that has ever been on this earth, and is nothing but destruction and death. And when we look at open borders, and Barbara, you just mentioned sex trafficking, that is the most horrendous crime of humanity. These little boys and girls are being traded for sex, and I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that the Democrats voted against increasing penalties for sex traffickers, and I says that right there seals them as the party of darkness. If you are not willing to go after sex traffickers, you are the party of darkness, and we're not going to put up with this. And our southern borders have been devastated, and there's a purpose for this. And it's to bring in all of these illegals, flood the United States, overwhelm the United States, overwhelm our welfare system. We're already bankrupt, folks. $31 trillion in debt, and adding. I saw yesterday that the United States personal credit card debt increased $100 billion in the last, I guess it was this year. It might have been in the last quarter. $100 billion, 13% increase. People are having to go to their credit cards and pull money out of their savings just to survive. This is not America, folks. And they're paying people not to work. I have people say, "You're crazy. The government's not paying them not to work." Yes, they are. They're overwhelming the system. We did a whole show on Cloward Piven about how that works. All right, Barbara, back to you, Barbara.
Thank you, Richard. Yes, and all those illegals. There's a reason and a purpose that they're trying to achieve with bringing in so many illegals. Besides devastating America, one of the things to achieve is poverty. They're importing poverty, and they're trying to do away with citizenship. When you're allowing illegals to vote in California or non-residents or in New York, you're doing away with citizenship, and that's not who we are. We're a country. we have a right to remain as a country. We have the right to protect our laws and our borders and our country. We have a right to fight for America. We don't have to be all inclusive. Why? Why? We have a right to protect America. And America, we're a country that cares about people. We always have. Historically, we have always cared about people. But we need to protect our country. And because we care about people, we need to protect America.
Yeah,
and not allow it to be overrun.
And Barbara, again, it's going back to being a good, moral, vibrant American country. And
right.
Our Judeo-Christian principles and values that this country was founded on are being shoved away. And when they took prayer and the Ten Commandments and the Bible out of the school, we saw a generation later the big results of that. So, Barbara, let me. We probably need to be wrapping up a little bit here.
Yes.
But I'd like to get a couple of impressions from you, and I know you've mentioned a lot of concerns about America, but could you explain to us when you first stepped into America in 1969, what was your first impression?
I was 5 years old, and I had fallen asleep on my father's arms, crying from grief that my mother was not able to come on the airplane. As a matter of fact, when I asked my dad, I was on the plane, and I asked my dad, "Where's Mom?" He didn't have to answer. I saw the look on his face. I ran off that plane, and he had to run after me. He picked me up, held me tight under his arm, and through clenched teeth, he said, "You better stay still, girl, or they're going to keep us all here." He got me back on that plane, and I cried, and I fell asleep in his arms, just pure grief. And so when we came into America, I was confronted with a bigot, someone who was not happy of us being there. And he gave me that smallpox shot, and he was not happy. And it was very aggressive. So that was my first, and so was rejection, really, was the first. But let me say this, Richard. Having grown up in this country, I realized that is not who America is. That was that man. Yes, you will come across people like that. But that is not who America is as a whole, as a nation. America is the greatest country in the world. America is a land of promise. And a land, for me, is where I found God. And you may find that in many nations, but not like here. I believe our Constitution was created honoring Christian principles. And it is because of that America has been blessed. It is because of that the United States is unique. And it's because of that Constitution, which is founded on Christian principles, has made us who we are, a people who care about people. We don't put power over people. Humanity matters because we're created in the image of God. And I believe that is what has made America who she is. And we are losing that. We are losing that because of, we don't honor those principles anymore. We have turned away. When we say that it's okay, and now again, I'm a Christian, but when we say that it is okay for a man to marry a man and for a woman to marry a woman, that is wrong, and that does not bring anything good upon our nation. On the contrary, and I believe the hand of God and his blessings have been removed until we realize as a nation and as a people that our blessings come from him, and that comes when we honor him and we honor his word. And that is the reason why I believe that we are not experiencing the blessings of God. It's because we're not honoring him. We're not honoring. The Constitution was created for moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the government of any other. John Adams. So until we remember that the Constitution was created for moral and religious people and start acting in an appropriate manner I don't believe that we're going to have to see the blessings of God again anytime soon. I believe that the things that are happening right now will be a wake-up call. We never thought it could happen here.
And I agree with that, except we need to go to a break again, and we'll be right back. And ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Beautiful August 5th, 2022. This is the Medlock Post radio show, and this is Richard G. Medlock. And we have had a fantastic education today from Barbara Arthur on the just horrific things that come out of communism. And they are horrific, ladies and gentlemen. There's no good in communism, period. None whatsoever. Once you realize that, then you'll start opening your eyes to what is happening in America. Tyranny is bad. Tyranny is bad. It costs human lives that shouldn't be lost. Barbara, I want to read a quote to you. I've read it on the show a couple of times, and this is by John Locke, who was one of the people that the Founding Fathers really followed. Cicero and John Locke and Montesquieu and Blackstone and many, many others. But he said, quote, "Whenever legislators endeavor to take away and destroy the property of the people or to reduce them to slavery under arbitrary power, they put themselves into a state of war with the people, who are thereupon absolved from any further obedience," unquote. Can you take that quote and apply it to us today, Barbara?
Well, absolutely. You know, when you said take the property of the people, I'm going to take that literally. A lot of people don't know Biden has a plan right now, low-income housing plan. And it's changing our zoning laws, where you and I, as Americans, have worked harder all our lives, and let's say we want to build a home in a gated community. You know, we worked hard all our lives to achieve that. Well, Biden administration is saying, no, you can't do that because that's exclusive and it must be inclusive, meaning that if someone wants to build a high-rise, low-income housing building right beside me, they can. They're trying to do away with the American dream. They're trying to do away with who we are as a nation. In America, you can achieve whatever you want if you're willing to work hard for it. And so they want to take that away.
And that's the key, is work. You know, my parents taught me, if you want something in life, you work for it. There are no handouts. That's right. My parents went through the Great Depression. My dad was a sharecropper, he and his family, my grandparents. And if you wanted to eat, you worked. And that's the way it used to be. But we've softened up America. I sit here and look at people out there that I feel sorry for them. They don't even know how to do a garden. You know, and they think food, it comes from the grocery store. Why are you killing chickens and cows? So you can eat?
Right.
But right now, I look at this, that the government of the United States is at war with the people. And we can't put up with that any longer.
And I'm in agreement with that. And it's you know, 15, 16 years ago, I chose to homeschool. And I will tell you, it was not just that I felt led to homeschool. And I just thank God that I did, because my kids understand history and they were not indoctrinated with what's going on in schools today. And unless parents wake up and understand what's happening to their children in this generation, the one that's being indoctrinated with all this perversion and all this anti-America rhetoric, this is going to be the next generation, and they're the ones who are going to be setting the laws. So we got to do something quick. Yeah,
but Barbara, I don't know if you're aware of There's a group called Moms for Liberty.
Oh yeah,
And
I'm a member.
oh, okay, and they're doing great work.
Absolutely.
I've talked about them a couple of times, and we're having citizens, not politicians, running for school boards and other local things. The one thing
Right.
I think that a lot of people are missing, Trump, his endorsed candidates are 153 and 10 in primaries. These are not politicians. These are business people. These are moms. These are dads that are tired of the political games that are being played. And it's going to take us a while to get this turned around. But folks, we're going to turn it around. We the people will save America. And that's
And I
what we're
would,
looking at. Barbara, thank you. Thank you so much for being here today, for giving your time so our audience can learn from you and your experiences coming from a horrendous communist dictatorship in Cuba into America and seeing America turned into that society slowly. And it's an eye-opener. It should be for everybody. And we really appreciate you being here today. And ladies and gentlemen, folks, that's it for the Medlock Post today. And may God bless America. And we'll see you next week.
thank you, Richard.
Thank you. Hang on, don't go anywhere.